Good evening and welcome to All for United on what has been another frustrating day again. It feels like I could be like AI at this point and this could all be recorded. Every weekend I'm coming on saying this is a frustrating weekend, this is that. But I'm live. I am. Look, I'm live. And we've got to dissect today's game and the week that has been Manchester United. We've got two quality guests. Matt Morgan, how are we?
Yeah, I'm all good. I'm all right. In terms of the football, not so much. But yeah, I'm sure we'll get into the nitty-gritty, but hopefully we'll feel a bit better for it come the end of the show.
Yeah, we will get into it. Fear not. Ben, how are we?
Yeah, similar. We say it every week, don't we? Apart from the football. Yeah, started on Saturday and it's just got gradually worse all the way through. So
yeah. At least it wasn't a Friday. At least they haven't ruined your weekend. They've just ruined like the end of it. As seems to be the way with United at the minute. All right, so we'll start with you, Matt. Starting lineup, as always. Forget what's happened in the game.
Yeah.
So no Ahmad, no Mainu, no Ugarte, no Collier. They're big misses, aren't they?
Yeah. I think everyone's gut feeling. I think you'd be something wrong with you if you didn't think the same. I think after seeing the injury news, I think it was yesterday, when it all sort of came out about Ahmad and obviously Ugarte, Mainu, etc. being missing, you kind of feared the worst. Because even with those players in the team, the performances haven't been all that great. So the fact that you're missing Ahmad, who's probably been one of our, if not our best player for quite a while now, you just kind of knew that it wasn't going to end very well. They just lost that creativity, that spark in the team, I feel. With him not there, and obviously out for the rest of the season as well. So it's not as though we can go, it's just for today's game, or we'll be back next game, but he's not. So we've kind of got to find a way of dealing with that between now and the end of the season. How he does that, I don't know. If you look at today's bench, albeit like we'll get into later on, we'll discuss obviously should he use for them players potentially, you could argue. But if that's what he's got to work with between now and the summer, I don't think anyone holds that much hope for the rest of the season, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Ben, obviously Ahmad out for the season. I've seen reports that Mainu might be out for the season as well. Are we paying the price of not bringing anyone in January here? Like, numbers are very thin.
Yeah, I think it's just karma, isn't it? Essentially, we kind of knew what position we're in. We knew Rashford wasn't going to be part of the squad past January, whether he was going to leave or not, or whether he was going to carry on playing. And then obviously Anthony was going out. And I think we've known all along, even from the start of the season, that front line is inexperienced.
Yeah,
it should have been on the list to go out and get an experienced player. I've been saying all season, just go and get Danny Welbeck. I think if you went and said, here's 5 million for Danny Welbeck or whatever it might be, they might take it. And yeah, we're just paying the price for it now. It's just karma that a couple of weeks after the transfer window's finished, we have this like massive influx of injuries.
Yeah, I mean, it leaves us in a little bit of a mess, doesn't it, Matt? I mean, you said, like, how are we going to sort it out for the rest of the season? How did you feel? What did you think of the starting 11, given obviously numbers are short? Would you have put one of the youngsters in from the start, or was you okay with Casemiro in there?
I wasn't. Yeah, I wasn't. I can understand people that say they'd like to have seen one of the kids from the start. I just wasn't overly surprised that he didn't. I even said this morning, I was like, I wouldn't be surprised to see him go with Xerxes, Højlund, the usual people up front. Obviously, in midfield, we've literally got next to nobody ever, let's be honest. Now, obviously, Mainu and Collier and etc. Obviously, Ericsson as well wasn't available today. So, yeah, the starting 11 I wasn't overly surprised by. Obviously, they're the only senior players, clearly, that he's got available at the moment to choose from, barring Lindelof. So yeah, wasn't surprised by the starting 11. I was just disappointed to see no one come on, but it's one of them. I suppose we'll see what the next game brings. Maybe he might just integrate them gradually. I don't know. I suppose we'll wait. Time will tell, won't it?
Yeah. We'll get into the youngsters. Don't worry about that. So he goes through that lineup, Ben. In the first sort of 10-15 minutes, I think we were just kind of like feeling each other out, weren't we? And then Bergvall had a shot, edge of our box. Onana. Is that Onana's fault, that goal, or is that the defenders on a bit flat-footed? It felt a bit soft for me. His parry out felt a bit soft.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of... If you watch the reaction to the goal, I think Bruno was more fuming with De Ligt and Maguire not following in. But
Yeah.
you should be fairly comfortable that your keeper's going to catch some of these shots. And it seems to be a recurring theme now that the ball keeps bouncing off him, wherever it might be. It'll hit his chest, but it always just seems to come out into the middle of the goal, which we can't have. Even if he's pulling off ridiculous saves every week, which he has done, granted, throughout the season. He's made some big saves. He's made some important saves, but he's also making a lot of mistakes. I think I saw a stat flying about that errors leading to goals. He's already made as many as De Gea made in his time at United. And you think of how De Gea got ridiculed towards the end. That's kind of what we're dealing with at the minute. And it feels like we're getting to the point where we might get into the summer and be saying, actually, we need a new goalkeeper as well, which I didn't think we were going to be there at the beginning of the season, but this is where we are.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I used to be a goalkeeper in my earlier days, and the coach would always say, you parry out sidewards, you never push it out sort of centrally, you parry out or you catch it, which goalkeepers never seem to do nowadays. What was your view on that, Matt? Was that Onana, or was that the defenders being a little bit flat-footed for you?
A bit of both, but again, it's not the first time we've seen it from Onana. It seems like a common occurrence now at every game, essentially. There's always something where you can question him, his decision making, or just something basic where you can look and go, we should have done this better, should have done that, which we all know, because it's like I say, it's a regular occurrence. Now, in terms of defenders, they did react a little quite well. I think they stopped thinking he was offside. But again, what the saying is, you play to the whistle or you play to the flag, and obviously there was no flag gone up at that point. There was no whistle. There was nothing to indicate that they were going to give an offside. Every defender stopped, and obviously it was a tap in for Maddison. But Onana should be doing a lot better though, definitely. Parrying it out. I think their keeper done something similar as well, similar situation, but he actually parried it into an area where it was away from any oncoming players. I think he just needs to start just doing the basics right at the minute. He's just costing us quite a lot at the moment. Yeah,
I mean, if he does his job properly there, the defenders, it's not an issue, is it? We were getting rid of De Gea because he would be a little bit sloppy with his feet, but he was bloody good shot stopper, wasn't he, De Gea? He was very good at doing what goalkeepers are there to do for me, to keep the ball out the back of the net. And then it puts us on the back foot, Ben, with 1-0 down. But I thought United had the better of the chances after that. I thought we created some sort of okay half chances and maybe should have got a leveller.
Yeah, I think obviously Garnacho has come under a lot of criticism after the game for some of the chances. I think Højlund had a couple of shots, but ultimately we've been saying this all season where we just can't rely on these players to score them goals. You think of that Garnacho chance and you put that to someone like a Salah or a Cole Palmer or whoever it might be, it's virtually a guaranteed goal, but it's not with Garnacho and it's not with Højlund. Xerxes just seems to be reluctant to get into the box at all. He actually gets chances when he gets into the box. You think of the couple of times where he went in, he had that header, and then there was another one where it came back to him, and you think just get in the box a bit more. And like you say, we create a few chances. We're just not clinical enough, and that's been the issue all season, and it's going to be the issue for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, it's a common theme, isn't it, that we're just not clinical enough. I actually thought Xerxes was quite good today, Matt. I don't know what you thought. I thought his build-up was quite good.
Yeah, I think out of the two, after we've been debating obviously Lindelof and Højlund quite a lot in comparison the last few weeks. I think personally, Xerxes come on the most. And I think ever since that game where he got brought off after 30 odd minutes, and obviously the crowd booed him and cheered because he got brought off. I think ever since then, I think we've started to see signs of what he can bring. Also, like the little cheeky nutmeg he's doing here and there. He just looks a lot more confident on the ball. And actually, as a Manchester United player, whereas before we kind of felt he was a little bit flat, wasn't really doing much, bringing much to the team, a bit like Højlund. But no, I thought, for me, Xerxes was probably one of our better players today, to be quite honest. I thought he'd done everything right. He kept the ball well, and he sort of linked up the attacks quite well as well. Moved the ball quickly, which a lot of the players didn't do throughout most of the game. So I haven't got any complaints with Xerxes' performance. I thought he played really well in the role that he's got him playing. And I think the role he's got him in, he's not so much as a number 9. He's sort of playing a bit further back, where I think he can affect the game a bit more than as like a main number 9 or the main striker, so to speak. So yeah, no complaints. Absolutely, for me, like I say, one of the best players of the match for me.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think we may have said on the show before. I think he looks better in the 10 because, as you say, on the ball he looks a lot more comfortable than Højlund, who, as I've said before, is like a hot potato in it. When he gets the ball, it's like. But Ben, I've seen a few sort of TikToks about this. Sort of scrolled through the internet after the game. You take Garnacho's goals away from Garnacho. Is he any worse than Anthony? With his decision making, with his wastefulness, is he any different? Are we a little bit easy? Do we go easy on him because he come through the academy?
Probably doing it. I think we always do. Anyone who comes through the academy, you give them an extra 10% chance than what you might anyone else. I think it provides a defender's probably going to be more scared of Garnacho one-on-one than what you would Anthony. It's just the decision making. I think today Dorgu must have run round him 3, 4, 5 times, and it's fair enough the first time to cut inside and have a shot because it was a decent shot. The keeper had to make a save. But you can't keep doing that. You saw the 3rd or 4th time, Porro just stood there and said, well, he's not going to pass it. He's going to come inside and try and take me on. So Porro just literally nicked it off him. And I always talk about this kind of system goal, and that's what we need to be getting to. That should be a system goal in terms of Dorgu bombing down the wing and Garnacho feeding him in and then cutting it back to the likes of Xerxes, Højlund. But if your player's not fundamentally making that first pass, we're going to fall down at that point. So I'm hoping that's something Amorim can pick up or should be picking up and saying to him in the week, look, you need to be doing this. If Dorgu goes around him, you have to give him the ball. Yeah,
I agree. Like you say, Dorgu must have done that run sort of half a dozen times, and it just got to the point, didn't it, where it was just never going to happen. That becomes a bit of a problem for me then, Matt. Whilst we're not great, for me, then you simplify, and you simplify by doing the things like you put in Dorgu in, and as Ben says, you sort of cut it back to the striker. He's gone actually a little bit tunnel visioned. Is he a little bit? I've said it on a few shows. His decision making winds me up to like no end. When there is easy options, is that a problem? Do you think going forward?
It's definitely something he needs to work on. Like I said, we could all sit here and go, he's obviously still young. He still needs to learn parts of his game. He needs to adapt his game. But like you guys said, it's the basics. And like you say, if you're repeating the same thing, and this links into your question of comparing it to Anthony, he's one of them players where he's very predictable, sort of does the same thing over and over again, comes in, cuts inside, curls it. It doesn't come off more often than not. And I feel like Garnacho's, I'm not saying he's on Anthony's level, I'm just saying the link in the way they both approach, they sort of do the same sort of thing every time they go forward. I think just to take his game to the next level, I think he just needs to start doing the basics, starting to look around him, look at his surroundings a bit more rather than just going straight on and thinking, oh, I'm going to go for goal or going to try and take someone on. Because like I said today, Dorgu is a perfect example. We've got someone now that's actually going to overlap and provide another option for him to make life a bit easier for him. He just needs to start looking up a bit more and start using them other options rather than just thinking he can take on a whole team on his own. And just, I think a lot of it's a mentality thing. Whether he thinks he's better than what he is to a degree, I don't know. I think he just needs to start using his teammates a lot more and start getting more out of it as a team and become a bit more of a team player. I think at the minute he's sort of playing as a bit more as an individual rather than a team player at the moment. Is probably the best way to describe it, I'd say.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair to say. So we get to half time and it's 1-0 still. The second half, it just never felt like United were going to score to me, Ben. It felt very flat, and if anything, it felt like Spurs were going to get a second goal. Just never felt like United really wanted to push on.
No, I think we had a 3 or 4 minute spell where we were half decent, and then apart from that, Tottenham they didn't even look stressed or troubled in terms of when we're on the ball around the box. They were just kind of sat there thinking they're not really going to do anything here. And I think it shows when Bruno starts playing these long, hopeful balls which sometimes they come off. There was a couple of them that went through when you think, actually, that was a good ball. But I think when he starts doing that, that's when the rest of the team become kind of reluctant to make runs, connect plays,
It's in that
stuff
bag,
like
isn't it?
that. And then we end up struggling around the box. And then Spurs can just sit in there all day, happy, comfortable. They had Ben Davies at centre half. They had the young lad came on at centre half, and we barely put the ball in the box. Like there's just something fundamentally wrong.
Yeah, I think that makes it even worse that Spurs are so average. So many of their players are missing. It just never felt like we were troubling them, Matt, did it, in that second half?
No, I think, like I said, I think it was when we done the last show. I sort of said it's like a game of who can be the worst team, essentially. I don't think there was an awful lot. I think it was quite evident between the two sides today. Yeah, we did have the chances. Would you class them as clear-cut chances? I'm not quite sure. So yeah, you sort of watch United at the minute and you sort of think these moments where you think, oh, there's a bit of promise, like an attack it could be, and they get into a good position, like the Garnacho chance in the first half. And then you sort of like, you just don't see where the goals are going to come from. Like, whoever it is on the pitch, especially now, most with Ahmad not in the team as well, I just struggle to see where the goals and the creativity is going to come from, apart from the likes of Bruno. But Bruno seems to be playing quite deep, quite a lot. So then you sort of got to look further up the pitch. Where's the goals going to come from? And I just don't see personally where the goals are going to come from. And I had this discussion on WhatsApp with Sean earlier on as well, who obviously was watching the game. He said exactly the same thing. We just can't see where the goals are going to come from at the moment. I don't know what you guys think, but I personally, you just watch it, and you just don't see where we're going to score 2 or 3 goals every game and finish a team off and win a game comfortably. I just don't see it anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, for me, when we go 1-0 down, for me, it feels almost like that's it, because goals just are so hard to come by. And then it comes to what we got on the bench today, Ben. We've got this lad that we're hearing reports every week that he's scoring hat-tricks, he's scoring goals every week, he's assisting every week, he knows where the goal is. Why didn't Amorim use anyone off the bench when, as we've said, nothing is happening in that second half? Why didn't he bring... There was a couple on the bench, I think, today that he could have probably brought on that would have helped in the middle. Obi obviously would have helped going forward. What's the reluctance there?
I don't know. I don't know whether he was trying to protect them or whatever. But ultimately, the attackers is the easiest one to bring on, because if they come on and don't do anything, then one, it's no different to what the attackers are doing currently. And also, it's not going to tarnish their reputation if they don't do anything. If you bring on a centre half and he makes a clanger and they go and score, that's a slightly different story. But bringing on Obi for 20 minutes or whatever it might have been, and like you say, one of the midfielders, that Kone could have come on and ran about, clattered a few players, given away the ball a bit, and would have all been like, oh, he's actually shown a bit compared to what Casemiro did. So I don't know whether he just didn't understand the situation properly or whether he didn't see the opportunity to. For me, it seems like an easy, simple thing to do to get the fans on side. I've said that in my video. I think Ollie used to do that when we were struggling, when we weren't playing very well. He'd be like, oh, I'm going to chuck on a Chong or whoever it might have been, just to give us a little bit of that. So yeah, I think he's missed an opportunity on that side as well. And there's also the opportunity that they are good players that could have come on and changed the game.
Yeah, I mean, Rashford's obviously in the news at the moment, but you go back a few years, Van Gaal, I think he brought him on against Midtjylland. He was a little bit of an unknown. And then the rest is history, and he scores against Midtjylland, scores against Arsenal. You never really know what's going to happen, I don't think, with the youngsters, Matt. Amorim has said in his press conference after, he didn't want to risk their development by bringing them on. Why take them then? Why don't you just have Lindelof and Bayindir or Heaton on the bench?
Yeah, it's a strange one. I think we said this in the group chat towards the end of the game. We're sort of in a situation now where it's like, why not give it a try? At this point of the season, realistically, what are we actually looking to achieve is what you've got to be looking at, I think, now moving forward for the rest of the season. With what he's got available, obviously, I can't see us getting very many players back from injury anytime soon. Maybe barring the odd one or two, I think, like you pointed out earlier on, that may come back for the next game. But next game, you're going to have the same issue. You're going to have the majority of the bench as kids again. I'd imagine. I just feel like we've got nothing at this point. We've got nothing to lose by giving them a go. And like you say, Rashford's a prime example. You bring a player on like Obi Martin, give him obviously longer than 3 minutes, obviously than he had today. Say half an hour, 20 minutes. You never know, could come on and get a goal, get us back in, or even score a winner. You just never know. In that moment, can change a player's career, could even change his season, and then he looks then to start in the next game, and then you sort of starting to build and go somewhere. At the minute, we're just sort of just going again. It's a bit like the tunnel vision route of playing the same starting 11. But I don't see how we can play that same group of players for a full 90 minutes every game if we're going to have players out injured week after week and not use any of the academy players. I just don't see how that's possible. So yeah, for me, like I say, I was a bit disappointed to see. Obi was the one I was probably most excited to see play if he had come on out of any of them. But the fact that he only got 3 minutes was quite disappointing. I just hope moving forward we start seeing them integrated into the team a bit more, because you just never know. They could bring that spark that the team needs, that bit of energy. And we all know they're going to put a shift in and they'll actually fight for the badge, which a lot of players at the minute just don't seem interested in doing. So yeah, hopefully moving forward we do start seeing them involved a lot more, hopefully.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. So we've got Everton next weekend, Ben. Is he going to pick all those youngsters again? And is he going to not play them again because he doesn't want to risk their development? And then what happens when the weeks come where we've got the Europa League in midweek? Are we going to have Casemiro playing like 200 minutes a week and like crawling off the pitch because he's knackered?
Which is the thing, if he's saying it's for development, that they're never going to play, are they? Because we're terrible. And like you say, Everton are probably going to cause us more issues the way they're playing than what Tottenham did today. Tottenham are bang average. Any half decent team should be going there and slapping up that Tottenham team. And I think, yeah, Everton, we're going to be right up against it. We're never going to be two goals up against them next week. So he's never going to bring them on. So we're going to be sat with Lindelof, like a school teacher, just sat there. He's the only one that can feasibly come on. And Højlund has already proven that he's got an injury in him. So what if he goes and gets injured? What do you do then? Do you chuck one of the centre halves up front? Ultimately, you're going to have to trust him. And I think he's at the club where you can trust these youngsters. We're not guaranteeing that these are going to be world beaters or they're going to turn out to be like a Rashford who stays in the team. But they can come in and they can do something and they can get you out of a bit of a mess. And I think he needs to know that.
Yeah, I mean, for me, could they do any worse, Matt, really, than what's happening at the moment? So he brings Obi Martin on for 3 minutes. In my head, that does more damage than bringing him on for 30 minutes. What's the point of bringing him on for 3 minutes? I mean, did he touch the ball? I'm not sure he did.
I don't remember him touching
the ball.
He
didn't know.
So, I mean, I'm by no means in the hammering out thing, but I think stuff like that it don't look good. I don't think for hammering. And he has to do more, doesn't he? He has to get more out of this group of players, regardless of injuries. I mean, whoever the players are, it's the same, isn't it? Whoever's playing, he's got to do more, isn't he?
I think the thing is, it's interesting because he keeps sort of reiterating the same thing every game, that he needs to get results, and the only way he's going to get time is by getting the results. And also at the minute, he's not getting the results. All the performances, we could probably argue as well. I think it's one of them. You sort of like, do you give the young players a chance now and then try and improve the results a little bit and try and get a bit of momentum going, or do you just stagger through till the end of the season, just as we are, just sort of losing games here and there, maybe pick up the odd point here and there? I just don't think the fans are going to have the patience for that, personally, because you've got to think, what, February now, it's like another 3 months of just sat watching the same thing week after week. I think he's just got to change something. I don't necessarily mean in terms of the way he's playing. I mean the personnel, giving the young players a chance, see what they can do. And like I say, they'll put in a shift. They'll put in more of an effort than probably the majority of them senior players will in the course of a season, most likely. And if he's limited for options, like I say, he's going to be forced into it with all the competitions we're in. We've got the FA Cup still, the Europa League still. We've still got quite a few games in that to go. And obviously, the league, we really need to start picking up in the league, because 15th place is it's embarrassing, really, isn't it? It's embarrassing, it's to say the least. So yeah, for me, I think he will be forced into having to use the youngsters. It's just a shame that he's going to have to be forced into it rather than him using it as a way of moving the team forward and trying to bring something new to the team in what's going to be a difficult final few months of the season. I feel.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it could almost double his squad overnight, can't it? If he's open to using the youngsters, it gives us more numbers, more options. But what can you do?
See, one thing as well, we do say about trust as well, obviously in using the younger players. Can anyone sit here and say we trust any of the senior players at the moment?
Well, it's that thing, isn't it? Like, how worse can it be?
Exactly.
Really, how worse can Obi Martin be than Hoyland is?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, surely the point of them being in the youth system is to sort of nurture them to come up to the when it's needed. I saw a post that you did in the week, Ben, on TikTok about murmurings coming out that a few players feel like the teething problems of Amarin's system aren't working, aren't going to go away, and maybe they feel they need to sort of change system, change formation. Do you think that's worrying that murmurs like that starting to come out?
Yeah, because I think that's definitely come from one of the players.
Mm-hmm.
You don't say something like that because it was very detailed and quite particular. And we've seen, how many times have we seen that before? It's a constant. But my argument is, and it was on that TikTok, in terms of, I can't stand here and say that the system is a bad system when we've got players like Delors, and I tend to pick on Delors because he can't make a 5-yard pass sometimes. So regardless of where you stood on the pitch, you could be stood open at the back, and if he gives the ball away, that is nothing to do with the system. And he did it again today. He kept coming inside, and he just whips it straight to one of their midfielders. And I'm sat there and I'm thinking, you can't blame that on them. Similar to the Garnacho chance, that's not Amarin. That's not his system. Amarin's probably told Dorgu, you go around the outside and Garnacho will slip you in. And Garnacho not slipping him in, that's not on Amarin, that's on the players. So I can't judge him until he gets his players. And then if it falls down from that point, that's when you start judging him.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. Would you echo something similar there, Matt?
Yeah, like it's a good point. I was actually saying something similar earlier on. The fact that you look at the chances we had today, particularly the Garnacho one, you can't there's only so much Amarin can do from the touchline. Obviously, you can set the instruction, the tactics, this and that, tell players what he expects of them. But if you're missing chances like Garnacho in the first half, that's not on the manager, that's on the player. The manager can't, from the touchline, make it hit the back of the net. If the player can't put it in the net, that's on the player. But yeah, for me, I struggle to see why anyone can question his tactics. I think he's been there since 3 months?
November, maybe? Yeah.
4 months, if that. It's not going to happen overnight. And we said this at the start when he first came in. And the fact we're sat here in February now, we are 15th in the league. The results aren't flowing. But it's the same situation. It's the same group of players that he's inherited halfway through a season that was already what you could call a damaged season anyway when Ten Hag left us. We weren't in a great position even then, let's be honest. So, yeah, I think it's very, very quick to judge and say it's all the system. I think the players need to have a look at themselves as well in certain moments and do a lot more than what they are, definitely. Yeah,
I agree. I agree what Andrew's put in the comments. Basically, why would you bring him in for playing the system he plays and then asking him to change it? You just wouldn't. It's pointless. I mean, I think that's possibly why Liverpool strayed away from him in the summer, wasn't it? Because they didn't want to change the system. They wanted to stick with the 4. And I just want to visit a few comments. It wouldn't be all for United if we didn't have Daz in the comments, so we're gonna put him on. This one's for you, Ben. Amarin out now. Regressed every player apart from Ahmad. Every week, it's a different mistake. How do you respond to that?
We know Daz is going to be controversial. It's in the name, isn't it? It's difficult to argue that the players haven't regressed because ultimately they have. But like I say, I don't think that's particularly down to the manager. I think it's a lot of what's just inherent in this group of players, that they're not very clever. They're not very smart. We kept saying this about Mazraoui when he came in, that he was very intelligent. I mean, he's dropped off these last few weeks as well. So that feels like an issue at United. And I think we keep saying about the system, we keep talking about it, but we watched that Sporting team dismantle Man City. And Gary Neville kept pointing out tonight about Bruno Fernandes going out to the left back and that being a system issue. But that was never an issue at Sporting. So, and their players are perceived to be not as good as what we've got at Manchester United. So where's the issue? Because that system worked perfectly for them. Is it a timing? Is it an education type thing that Amorim needs more time with these players? Or does he just need new players? Whatever it is, we don't know. In terms of regressing the players, I don't think it's him. I think it's just the nature of the beast. Manchester United is, if you compare, I've seen someone comment about Notts Forest and Newcastle and the managers and what they've implemented there. Yeah. You're comparing a fishing boat to the Titanic there, aren't you? In terms of turning it around and getting it going the right way. Manchester United is the biggest club in England, and it's not going to turn around overnight.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. I couldn't disagree with you. But Matt, you're not getting away. You're not getting away from Daz. Daz is putting everyone in. The issue for me is I don't think giving a manager more players and investment when he can't get the most out of what he's got, that's bad business. When you're in that position, he has to go. Fill your boots on that one, Matt.
Yeah. See, my argument is that I don't think it's as easy as saying that they shouldn't give a manager more players and investment if he can't get what he's got. Because at the end of the day, he's inherited a group of players that's been inconsistently playing poorly for the last few years under previous managers, under previous systems. If players can't get themselves up and the thing is, it could be the players that are not willing to learn the system. We don't actually know whether they're not capable or whether they're not willing to, because you've got to think it's the same group of players that weren't performing under Ten Hag as well. We must remember it's not just the manager. For me, I think Amorim's got every right to come in and be backed by Ineos, but he should absolutely be backed by Ineos. It's not even a question. I think it's their man. They've wanted this manager to come in. They feel he's the right person, which is why now they need to back him in the summer and give him that money, give him the backing to bring in and change the squad to how he sees fit, essentially. To sit here and say that he should get out the best of what he's got, you could argue, yeah, on the short-term basis, because this is what he's got to work with at the moment. There's nothing he can do to change that between now and the summer. But if you look at the long-term picture, the bigger picture, I think he just needs the backing in the summer, and then we can judge him better then moving forward, maybe later into next season or even the season after, once the squad's starting to feel a bit more like an Amorim team. Because like you say, if you can do it at Sporting with the players you got there, and you had the players there that fit and played the way you wanted to play, if you give him the backing at Man United, you're telling me if you can get Sporting playing that way, I'm not having it. You can't get United playing that way.
Yeah, I think it's fair. And I think this comment kind of agrees with what you both basically said. The mentality of the players is incredibly weak, fragile personalities, zero football IQ. It's been the players for a little while, hasn't it now? And managers have just kind of gone by the wayside, and these players have carried on being shit, for lack of a better sort of terminology. They've just carried on being really crap, haven't they? And yeah, I think that's. I think it's just a lack of quality.
I think on that as well, we don't have a physical team as well, so we can't even fall back on that. You look at some of the other teams in the league. City have got a back four that's massive and all physical. The striker's massive. Rodri, when he plays, is massive. Arsenal are the same. Liverpool are the same. So even when we're playing terrible football, we can't rely on just being sturdy or being physical and kind of overpowering a team like that. So, like Bruno Fernandes is our captain. He's tiny. He must be about 9 stone. And I know it's not necessarily about that, but it can get you through certain games.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we lack big players, don't we, in stature and sort of mentality, I think. This one's for you, Matt. Dan, we're back to the Erik ten Hag territory. Show us you're building for the future. Give the youngsters a bit of a chance. Yeah, what would you say to Dan's comments?
Yeah, he is right in that regard. It just feel like a deja vu moment again, where we've sort of like literally the team's wiped out with injuries again, and you're left with having to play and rely on the younger players to come in and try and turn the season around. And this links back to what we were saying earlier. That needs to happen. It's literally the only option he's literally got now. We've got no one else we can call upon. So yeah, for me, it does feel like we're back in that situation again.
Mm-hmm.
But I think on the short term, we just need to start trusting them a little bit more and just see where we are come the end of the season. Because you never know, like I say, it could be a case of these players could be playing for a place in the team next season.
Mm-hmm.
They've literally got a few months now to stake a claim in the first team, essentially. And now is probably the best chance to do that under the current circumstances that the club are in.
Yeah, I agree. As I said, I don't see any harm in putting the youngsters in. I think Andrew makes a good point. Certain parts of the fan base want instant success. When it doesn't happen, it gets toxic, and it doesn't help. Basically, I think what he's saying there, which I think is spot on. Daz, the players are the issue. They were the ones thriving before they come to United, and evidently thriving when they leave. We'll get to the players that have left. Yeah, so we'll leave the comments for a bit. Let them argue between themselves. So today's game we obviously lost. So let's get into a few of the stories from the week. Obviously FA Cup. We got Fulham in the 5th round, Ben. Good draw.
Not as good as Man City's as usual, but it's a Premier League team at home. I would like to say we should be beating Fulham, which we should be. No guarantees. I feel like we are performing slightly better in these cup competitions just by nature of we've actually still got something to play for. So I'm hoping that we can kind of turn it around and put in a decent performance in some of these games. And it should give them a bit of an incentive in terms of the biggest team barring us in it is City, who aren't at the best this season. We've already beat them last season in the FA Cup. And then the rest of the teams, like you say, Newcastle, Brighton, Wolves, all that type, we should be able to beat them. It's something to cling on to.
Yeah. I mean, I'd probably prefer for it to be away from home, to be honest, at the moment, Matt. What do you think to that draw, Fulham at home?
Yeah, it's a typical cup draw for us, really, isn't it? A home tie against a Premier League side like that. Again, like you say, you kind of look at it and you kind of hope for an away draw. We just seem to look a bit better away. Obviously, barring today, obviously we lost, but I think generally games at Old Trafford we just seem to just struggle quite a bit for quite a while. And obviously a cup game, it's got to be won on the day as well. So we haven't got like replays or a second chance away from home to rectify it. So yeah, it is what it is. But like Ben said, it's typical that we get the Premier League draw and City get the easier draw as per.
The City Cup run, that has to be looked at. I mean, what is it? Salford, Leyton Orient, and now Plymouth. There's some brown envelopes going on there, and geez. Wow. One of the other stories this week, Ben, Freedom. The Sancho Freedom comments. Now, I could say a lot of comments to describe this guy, which probably wouldn't go down well on this show. Give me your take on Sancho's Freedom comments. What's that all about, man?
I hear all of this. I'm quite a relatively young fan and involved with social media and stuff like that, but I hear all of that aspect of it in terms of the players getting along with each other and commenting on. They don't even play for the same team now when they're commenting on each other's. It just doesn't sit right with me, and I think it shows the mentality of freedom. You're suggesting that Manchester United was a prison where, how bad that you got paid 300 plus thousand a week. You got given off 4 months, which it was reportedly for some issues that he was having mentally or whatever it was, which I'm all for United kind of saying, look, go away, sort that out, get right. But then to come back and kind of have these little digs at the people who are still employing you, just doesn't sit right with me at all. But it shows the mentality. I mean, he's gone to Chelsea. He's done absolutely nothing, and he was terrible the other night as well. So
yeah, I mean, I quite like the fact that Rashford hasn't done that. I mean, fans can say what they want about Rashford. He's kind of left, and it's almost clean now. He's left. He won't say anything bad. Sancho's just constantly digging, isn't he, Matt? What's your take when you see players doing that?
It's modern football. It doesn't really come as much as a surprise, particularly with Sancho. It was very similar when he was actually playing for United. It was all social media posts, certain things, this and that between him and Rashford, and it's just unnecessary. Obviously, he feels like he needs to get that out there and let everyone know how he feels, which is fine. It is what it is. That's his own prerogative, but it's just unnecessary. But I'd like you say, I do like the fact that Rashford sort of left the club, albeit on loan. But it's sort of happened quietly. There's been no big dramas, no social media posts slating this person, that person. It's just all been nice and just happened smoothly. He's gone to Villa and hopefully he does well. Like I say, we've all said we've got nothing against Rashford. We want to see him get back to his best again. Just not when he plays against us, obviously. But yeah, in general, I haven't got any issues with Rashford. As for Sancho, thankfully they've got an obligation to buy in the summer, and he won't be coming back to Man United. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if reports are to be believed, Ben, Chelsea are already trying to find ways of moving him on in the summer. It feels a little bit like João Felix to me with Chelsea. I can see him maybe loaning him out, maybe to Dortmund or somewhere like that. United stand to get 25 million, stand to get 300 grand off the wage bill. It feels like good business to me.
Yeah, I was kind of hesitant at the time when it happened to say that it was a good deal, because I felt like he could have gone to Chelsea and he could have potentially done quite well in that system. I think it suited what he does. But yeah, you look back at it now and you think that's actually a cracking deal. We've got him off the books. And we've got him out of the changing rooms as well, which you look at some of these young lads coming in, he's not a role model for any of them at all. So you think Amarin might be going through issues now, but then younger players can look at it and say, well, Sancho and Rashford have been binned off this season. They're doing that. We're not going to do that because we'll get binned off as well. So I think all in all, we've got a good deal.
Yeah, I agree. It's about setting the standard, isn't it, in the dressing room? And I think Amarin is trying to do that. I think RL7 says it perfectly. Sancho is everything that's wrong with modern day football. And it's true. He's just a proper mouthy little fucker, isn't he? That can't back it up on the pitch is basically it. And he's being found out. But like you say, the fact he isn't at our club anymore, it's all gravy. But I'm going to throw one to you, Matt, in the same way I threw Garnacho and Anthony to Ben.
Mm-hmm.
Was Dan James better for Man United than Jadon Sancho?
100%. I don't think anyone could argue. For me, I think the one word for me was the energy and the commitment. Like, you could see the quality wasn't necessarily quite there, but the effort that he put in every game was a million times what Sancho put in for me.
Yeah, I agree. But Ben, do you disagree or?
Yeah, I think we go back to talking about physicality on the pitch and him being able to sprint at ridiculous pace. It's an element of the game that we don't have at the minute. His decision making was a nightmare sometimes, but yeah, it's done more for the club than Sancho did and put in 100 times the effort.
Yeah, he's doing really well for Leeds as well, isn't he? I know it's in the Championship, but he's doing really well for Leeds. So we just a little bit.
Anthony has scored again tonight, by the way.
He scored again. I was literally about to talk about Anthony. I was going to go a little bit of a lone watch. So he's got a couple of man of the matches.
He's just scored.
What's he scored now? 3 goals in 3 games or something like that, or 4 games?
And an assist, yeah.
And does he have a future at the club, do you think, Ben? Or do you think that's it?
I think it's done. I think it was probably a pressure thing, wasn't it, with Anthony? It looked like he felt the weight of the shirt. And it probably suits him going to a technical, a little bit slower league where it gets a little bit more time on the ball, because he is quite good on the ball in terms of like retention, just general technique. But yeah, hopefully that does well, and we get a bit more money for him in the summer.
That's mad though, isn't it? That he's gone there and he's just hit the ground running straight away. It's nice though. It's nice seeing with a smile on their face. Another one, Matt, Anthony Martial hasn't missed a game for Athens yet. What the? He was like he was made of cornflakes, weren't he, when he was with United? How is he now? Like, I think he scored a goal every 100 minutes or something like that as well. What's that?
You can't act like this. It's just a United thing, don't you? It's just like you just every time, whenever at United, you just feel like you need to be injured constantly.
Is it like a curse or something?
It's got to be something on it. It's got to be somewhere. I feel like the club's been cursed for a while, to be quite honest. That's just how it feels. It's hard to really say, and it's just very surprising how a player like that was literally next to sort of every game. You sort of like you knew he wasn't going to be involved, whether it be some sort of injury and then goes to another club and he's played every single game. It's something you can't really answer, but just doesn't come as any surprise.
It's mad, isn't it? Like the amount of players that are leaving United. Like McTominay at Napoli, he looks like prime like Zidane, doesn't he? Some of the games you watch him, it's like, what's going on? But no, it's good. Another one, Ben. So obviously we're talking. Well, we're soon going to be sort of talking about the summer market. Reports this week have come out that we rejected a move for, I think his name was Gersey or something. He plays for Dortmund, the striker. We rejected a move for him because he's 27. He's a little bit too old, apparently. And we're reluctant to pursue Victor Gyökeres in the summer because he's 27. I don't agree. That does not sit right with me.
No, it doesn't me as well. I did a video on that as well, saying that I understand this process of going for, like, it feels like they're going for like a second contract player in terms of where you get them on cheap enough wages, but they're coming to that point where they're going to be good players for the next 5 to 8 years, which is fine. You can build a good squad doing that, but sometimes you look at Liverpool going out and getting Alisson, Van Dijk. You do have to go out and get that 27, 28, 29-year-old, and Gyökeres feels like that's the option, because I don't know who else in the world you go out and get that kind of guarantees what he can guarantee at the minute. We could go and get Kane, but that feels like something we should have done 2 or 3 years ago. And I think if Ineos are doing that, it's a financial route going for these younger players, which is a completely different topic. But sometimes you need to go out and just get the man, especially with the strikers.
So let's talk about the financial topic, Matt. Is the strategy just that they're going for 25-year-olds, or is the real truth about it is that we're just skint and we can't afford to pay these fees for these players if there's not a sell-on fee? For me, it feels like we're signing young players to have that sell-on after, like Lenny Yoro. If he works for United, we're probably going to get 100 million off Real Madrid if he's very good for us. Obi Martins, we signed for, I don't know, what was it, a couple of million from Arsenal. If he works for us, you're probably going to get 100 million again. It feels like sort of next week's thinking instead of concentrating on what's done now. Do you know what I mean? I mean, is it a financial issue, or is that really their philosophy of young players?
I think if you go off everything that you've been hearing recently, you probably put it down to a financial issue, which was also all the reasoning behind obviously why they didn't manage to do anything other than Dorgu in the January window, because of restricted, is it the PSR rules and things like that, where they need to offload players before they can bring players in. So I think there's an element of that to it. Also, we don't know what their approach is longer term, whether they've got a criteria of a certain age we try and avoid, or who actually knows. I suppose, again, time will tell come the summer in terms of who they bring in. But I feel like a lot of it at the minute is financial restrictions. I just think the club's financially, I think it's just in a complete mess from top to bottom, to be quite honest. And there was talks, I think if Ineos, I don't know how true, if Ineos didn't come in when they did, the club could have gone bust. How true that is, we don't actually know. But yeah, I think even with Ineos in now, with all the changes they're making, it just shows you where we are as a club financially. And like we say, it goes from top to bottom, and everything that floats from the top always sinks to the bottom. So it's all having a knock-on effect ultimately until things are sorted. But I think all the negativity coming out about all the changes that Ineos are making, that must be having a knock-on effect at the club as a whole, because it is on the fans, and that must feed through to the players and people within the club. So yeah, at the minute it just looks like a mess from the top of the club down at the moment.
Yeah, it feels like we're in a real bit of trouble, doesn't it, financially? What's your take on it, Ben, financially, of what you're seeing, what you're reading, and the way we may be going in the market and stuff like that? What's your sort of take on it?
I understand it from the financial side in terms of we are in a big hole and there's these regulations that kind of restrict what we're allowed to do. But my argument has always been that Ineos are getting the timing and the wording of some of the stuff wrong in terms of cutting the funding for they said they were going to cut the funding for the charity, which was like 40 grand a year, the week after they got rid of Dan Ashworth for 12 million or something like that. And it's just that public facing stuff, the optics of it, looking in on the club. And the people inside the club, there's been an email leaked this week that Ineos have apparently said about a meeting that's going to take place. And it's so brief. You can imagine as a player, as a worker sat there to receive an email off your boss saying, we understand all of this, but we've got tough decisions to make, basically. Can you imagine what you'd be doing? You'd be on Indeed looking for a job. You'd be panicking, sleepless nights. You can't do that fundamentally if you've got players on 300-400 grand a week. It's such a difficult message to get right, but they have to get it right because everything can turn against them overnight, virtually. And the PSR side of it, there was a graphic going around where 8 or 9 of the players make up £88 million a year in wages. And it was like Casemiro, Rashford, Malacia, Lindelof, Ericsson, players like that have barely played. If you get them off the wages this summer, that can make a fundamental change going into the next few seasons. And it can turn the tide quite quickly. So I think binning off a 40 grand donation isn't quite the right thing.
Yeah, it's the PR thing, isn't it? Like you say, like 40 grand is peanuts, isn't it, really, when you've got Casemiro on sort of like 12 million a year or whatever he's on. But yeah, I saw that post of yours, like it was about 28 million, wasn't it? And you had sort of like Sancho, Rashford, Casemiro. Yeah, it's. But so we move into the summer, Matt. What is the sell for United? How do they sell the club to, say, a Victor Gyökeres? Say we decide to go in for him. And you'd imagine most of the sort of top clubs in Europe will want him for sort of 50, 60 million that's being sort of touted.
Yeah.
How do we convince someone to come to United without lining their back pocket, which we're clearly not going to do nowadays because we're trying to sort of come away from that?
Yeah, aside from offering him 300 grand a week, which, like you say, is not good, is the approach that they're obviously not wanting to take now. You sort of struggle to look at what they can try and use as selling points to players at the minute. Obviously, Champions League football's most likely not going to be anything that they can offer next season. And then it's all about Ineos and Amorim getting together and trying to sell the longer-term project, what they're looking to build. Obviously, we've got all this talk of a brand new stadium, all new changes. Obviously, that's things that are not necessarily football-related, but the club as a whole. I think they just need to find a way of, because otherwise we're just going to struggle to get anyone. I think generally people say without Champions League football, you do struggle. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think United will always attract players. I think the name in itself will attract players that they want. But the key thing is for him to get the players that he wants, I think they've got to find a way of selling the project to these players without, obviously, to say, oh, we're not in Champions League football this season, but moving forward, next season, our aim is to get back in the Champions League.
Yeah.
And then, like I say, it's just the wider things like the new stadium, things like that. I think a lot of it will come into fruition, but they need to find a way of trying to sell the club longer term to the players rather than the short term, because the short term, the message isn't going to look very good. So yeah, I think we just need to find a way of selling it essentially longer term. And like I say, hopefully the new stadium talk will possibly help to show that we are trying to move in the right direction moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. So again, if you believe reports and stuff, we're kind of shying away from Victor Gyökeres. We're moving to people like Liam Delap and people like that, Ben. In his eyes, I mean, I think he looks a very good player. He looks a sort of strong, tall lad, lots of pace. Is that the sort of table that United are shopping at now? Is that what's going to really turn us into a top 6, top 4 team again? Signing Liam Delap?
No, I think I've said it a couple of times this season that I think players like that improve us now. Definitely, if he comes into the team, he walks into the team, he starts, and there's a lot of players like that at the teams lower down the league. But say, for argument's sake, if Arsenal go and sign, that's where we need to be, isn't it? Arsenal, City, Liverpool. That's the teams we're chasing. If City have got Haaland, if Liverpool, I dread to think if they go and get Isak in the summer, if Arsenal go and get Gyökeres, us getting Delap, the gap's just got bigger even.
Yeah.
And we've gone and signed a striker. So I think you do need to try and play in the market of going and getting players that these top clubs want. I think the central midfielder that City have got, we should have been looking at someone like that, because he's gone in and it looks like he's just hit the ground running. That type of player. Yeah. It all comes back to that financial side, doesn't it? Can we feasibly go and do that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I don't know what's about to it. I agree with what you said. It's kind of took me off my train of thought there. Yeah, I agree. It just feels like it's a real long time before United are going to get back to where we should be, isn't it? With the financial thing and the sort of people we're going to be signing and stuff like that. But just a little thing that kind of annoyed me in today's game, and it's annoyed me for 6 months, a year, a couple of years, ever since he's been on bloody Sky Sports. Gary Neville winds me up, man, to the next level. But ex-players in general, Matt, just constantly bashing the team. Like Scholesy in the week, doesn't like the back line, doesn't like what they do. Neville today, what's Amarin doing? Why is he, no one go out and get Valencia's sort of record when Neville was manager. Do you know what I mean? What are they trying to achieve, the ex-players, by constantly sticking the knife in? What's it doing?
It must. Well, it's annoying the fans for a start, because it is someone that does actually annoy me. And in particular, today's game, you sort of sat there watching the game, not particularly enjoying the game as it is, but then you've got Neville in the background piping away about how far apart Casemiro and Bruno are in midfield, saying it's like it's something you won't see in under-9s football or something like that. It's just, you sit there and you just think, the fact that he's on Sky Sports coming out with this, it's a bit embarrassing. It's not really constructive. I feel like a lot of things that they come out with isn't very constructive. I feel like they're just sort of trying to find a way of bashing the club or finding a way of criticising the manager. Because it's quite interesting, when Ollie was in charge, a lot of them didn't really pick up on anything. I feel like a lot of it, they kind of want someone that's been at the club, like an ex-player, to be the manager. That's kind of the route that I feel like they're wanting the club to go down, which for me isn't the right thing to do. By all means, it really isn't. But I just don't get what they're trying to gain out of it. And particularly, obviously, Gary Neville, he's got the platform of Sky Sports to do what he's doing. But it seems to be a constant criticism of the club now. Every United game he's been on, I don't think I've sat through and heard anything good or anything constructive that has come out. It's just been a constant bashing, and it was the same today. And I think he was going on, it must have been about a good 15 minutes he was repeating himself, saying the same thing about Bruno and Casemiro constantly throughout. It was almost making me laugh at one point, because I'm just sat there going, you're just repeating yourself. Like we heard you the first time, we get what you're saying. But I feel like it's just a repetitiveness of it all. It's like, just talk about the game rather than just the same thing constantly. But what they're trying to gain by it, I have absolutely no idea. It's pathetic.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, a few comments have kind of come in the chat and said, like, they're not wrong. They've got expectations, and They're very high and all that sort of thing. But we're not that united, are we, Ben? Like what's Neville and Scholesy and all that trying to achieve by doing that? It feels like walking clickbait to me. Like they're just always trying to stay relevant. It's like we're 15th, man. Do you know what I mean? We're not like chasing down Liverpool here. We're not like knocking teams down left, right, and centre. We're 15th. We couldn't score in a brothel at this point in time. Do you know what I mean? What are they achieving by just bashing us constantly?
I feel like sometimes they try and be unbiased and they go the other way in terms of we're just going to dig United out for everything, because Gary Neville was commentating about the manager before the game had started, suggesting it was the system was wrong, all of that type of stuff. Paul Scholes obviously said midweek about Lenny Yoro, and he didn't like what he'd seen, and he pointed out the Southampton game. And can you remember Vidic and Evra in their debuts? And Rooney actually said about one of the trainings, he said, like, who the hell have we signed here? Because they're terrible. And I think the players at that time have obviously given them a chance and they've stepped up to that level. It's just, we're going through such a bad phase that we've got a lot of them players now that are struggling. But the expectations that they set at the time, like Roy Keane, he says a lot of stuff that seems clickbaity and seems out there, and it's easy to laugh along to, but it's also true as well, to be honest. Some of the stuff he talks about, you think the standards of not going out after a game, not doing this, this, and this, he's right, and fundamentally the players aren't doing that.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there is standards. It just feels like they go a bit over the top sometimes. I mean, you had like Defoe and Jamie Redknapp on Sky. They were like lauding a 1-0 win over United. It's like, well, shit, man. Do you know what I mean? I mean, there is like proper levels to it. I do get that. But yeah, Neville just does my head in. Everton next weekend, boys. Give me a prediction, Matt.
At this point now, it's hard to really do a prediction on the United game at the minute. Everton away is one of them. It's always been quite a tricky game for us. Like even though we've been playing well, it's always been quite a tricky ground to go to away from home. I'm going to keep me optimistic head on and go for a tight United victory and just hope for the best. We just need a win, don't we? We just need something. We just we really do.
Who's scoring the goals then? More to the point, in this narrow win, who's scoring the goals?
Well, it depends who starts. Depends. I think for me, if anyone's going to score, you probably got maybe like if like a Bruno can maybe step up with a goal, or you just never know if Xerxes can chip in with one, or if Højlund surprises us. We just never know. We just need someone to hit the back of the net, because we're just going to fall further and further down that table if we don't start winning. It really is. It's getting a bit depressing, to be honest. Yeah. For me, I'd go a tight 2-1 and maybe just hope Bruno chips in. And if he maybe starts Obi, you never know if he maybe comes on and nits one. Who knows? But yeah, we just need to find a way of winning the game at the moment.
Yeah, love the optimism of a victory. Ben, are you going to follow that up with a victory or no? What are you saying?
Do you know, I've never been negative or never predicted United to lose. I can't think I've ever done it, actually. But I think we'll lose. I just think Everton, David Moyes, that crowd, the physicality in their team, I honestly can't see us getting anything. A draw at best.
And
that pains me to say that.
I'm just trying to be optimistic.
Yeah, I agree. It's very hard, isn't it, to find that little bit of optimism at the moment about United. But yeah, I think we'll leave it there, lads. We will end on this comment now. The best team won today, lads. Enjoy the championship. The one good thing coming out of United at the minute is there's 3 teams that are worse than us at the moment in the league, and we're hopefully far enough away from them.
12 points into it, I think.
Yeah, but would the championship be that bad? You know, we might win a couple of games. You never know. But yeah, you have to keep smiling, don't you? Otherwise, you'll end up crying. All right, boys, where can we find you? Matt Morgan, where can we find you, bud?
Yeah, you can. My handle's just to the left of me. or like I say every show, make sure you're following All for United more importantly.
Lovely. Ben, where can we find you, bud?
Yeah, just over on TikTok. That's my name, I think. I never know what I'm called, but yeah, I do daily stuff on there. So
lovely. Yeah, go and check them out. Both good lads. Yeah, you'll see me again next weekend. Hopefully, talking about, as Matt Morgan has just described, a narrow United victory. Hopefully, that's what we're talking about next weekend. But have a lovely week, and yeah, up the Red Devils. Let's onwards and upwards. Positivity. Take it easy, guys.